Howdy guys, and welcome back to the channel. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is the prequel to the last 4 films that we've seen in the Hunger Games franchise, focusing in on our villain, seeing how Coriolanus Snow became who he is in the famous Hunger Games films. I would say that I'm mostly a fan of the Hunger Games franchise. I think Catching Fire is a fantastic movie all by itself. I think The Hunger Games, the first one, is pretty good. You know, I really like it. It hasn't aged quite as well as I would have liked it. And then the last 2 Mockingjay movies just were not it for me. So I came in with pretty reasonable expectations for this film. You know, I wanted to see a good Hunger Games, wanted to see a good character drama in here, focusing in on our villain, seeing his character progression into the monster we know of from the previous 4 Hunger Games films. And this movie is directed by Francis Lawrence, who previously directed the first Hunger Games movie, so he's someone who's very familiar with the franchise, hopefully understands this character very well. And I'll go ahead and start with the positives here. For the first 2/3 of this movie, for me, it's a 9 out of 10. It's up there with Catching Fire as one of my favorite Hunger Games movies for the first 2/3. Tom Blythe as Coriolanus Snow is fantastic, and I hadn't seen him in anything before this. I hadn't really even heard his name before. Now, going through his filmography, he definitely has experience. It's just not in anything that I've seen before, but he absolutely nailed the villain in this movie. Or I guess the protagonist turned villain. We see the slow character progression of Coriolanus Snow into someone who, is aiming for an academic scholarship, to someone willing to make certain concessions, break the rules a little bit in order to get what he wants, and we just see that progress into darker and darker depths, I guess, throughout the film. And I thought Blythe was spectacular throughout the entire thing. Even the last third of the movie that I thought was not as good, I think that he had several moments in there where it was just him on screen. He's our main character. He's probably on screen for 90% of the movie, and just an excellent job playing in that role. And something that I wasn't expecting was they truly made him the main character. I haven't read the book that this is based off, but I kind of assumed that he and Rachel Zegler would be the co-leads, but it is very apparent that he is the lead character. And whenever I realized that was a certain scene, this isn't really a big spoiler in the movie, but he kind of has to step into the Hunger Games for a brief moment to help somebody, and you feel a sense of fear and dread that at least I didn't feel whenever the game started with Rachel Zegler's character. And I think that was a really effective way of showing that the filmmakers knew who the story plotted around, and they knew who they wanted to thrust the audience in the shoes of. Because whenever Tom Blythe, Coriolanus Snow, is walking into the Hunger Games and they kind of focus on the landscape and you see it from his point of view, it is truly scary. And that's something else too in the positives here. They have a great Hunger Games in this. Something that I think they did a better job of than the first few films were the Hunger Games really seems brutal. It's during the first 10 years of it actually being a thing. It's very, very primal. It really all takes place in this one small arena with, they have little tunnels here and there, but it's close quarters. They're not out there in the forest like they are in the first Hunger Games movie where everybody's spread out. A lot of kids get very, very early into the Hunger Games, and it's pretty brutal. A lot of them are hard to watch, personally. And they did a good job of, distinguishing each of these kids from one another, because I would feel a certain sense of dread whenever another one of them got knocked off. And the build-up to the Hunger Games was excellent. I really bought the chemistry between Rachel Zegler and Tom Blythe. I really, really did buy in that he was truly trying to help her. He had incentive to, but he wanted to help her survive, and I truly believed that this guy was falling in love with her. And Rachel Zegler's character, I think, serves her purpose in the movie. She is supposed to be kind of a bystander in Coriolanus Snow's overall story. She basically is pure, I guess. I mean, don't get me wrong, she does bad things in the movie like anybody would. It's a Hunger Games movie. But she serves as an excellent catalyst to helping Coriolanus Snow become the monster that he is. Kind of keeping in with the performances, Viola Davis is excellent here. The character that she plays runs the risk of being too silly, and in certain parts she is, but she is such an excellent villain. I thought that she really knocked it out of the park here. Peter Dinklage is great in the movie too, as one of the co-founders of the Hunger Games, who really regrets his decision, and you can see it in every single scene that he's in. He really hates Coriolanus Snow because he co-created the Hunger Games with Snow's dad, and he takes that out on the son. Jason Schwartzman is funny. Sometimes he's a little bit too funny in certain scenes after, someone's just gotten murdered, and he's just cracking jokes left and right, but I thought he played the role that he had written for him very well. And then last but not least is a supporting actor that probably not a lot of people know. His name is Josh Andreas Rivera, I believe is how you say his name. He is becoming one of my favorite supporting actors right now. He's really only been in 2 movies that I've seen, but he was previously in West Side Story with Rachel Zegler, and I think the two play off of one another pretty well here. They don't have that much screen time in the Hunger Games, which is too bad. But still, I think that he has really fantastic screen presence. He plays Snow's best friend throughout the film. His character makes a couple decisions that I think are pretty stupid and don't really line up or make sense. But that's not the actor's fault. But I really like the direction that Rivera's career is going in, and I think that he's a very promising new name in here. I can't wait to see him in more. But yeah, the first 2/3 of this film I thought were dramatic, the action was great, the performances were excellent, and I'm sure you've heard this before if you've watched any review for this movie, the last third is not great. Unfortunately, the last third of this film has kind of tanked the movie for a lot of people. For me, it doesn't really change my opinion of the movie that much. I still really enjoyed this film, but the last third feels so rushed. A lot of the characters are making decisions that don't really make sense. You need Snow's character to be in a certain place by the end of the movie, and it feels like in the last 10 minutes, they know the story beats, but they're just doing it way too fast. Like, the ending didn't really make sense. What one character does, specifically to Snow near the very end of the movie, didn't really make sense to me. I was trying to find the motivation there. I think they kind of alluded to it, but it wasn't spelled out that well for the audiences. I think it left a lot of people confused. I was a little confused for sure, but it feels like at the end of the movie, they just needed Snow to be evil at the end. So they rushed it for the last 10 or 15 minutes. And I actually think the story in the last third is pretty good. Like, I think that it's in line with the rest of the movie. It just, I don't know, maybe they could have used their time more wisely in the last chunk of the film, because it's a long movie. It's 160 minutes, so they had plenty of time, and they had progressed the character far enough to that point where I think you could start to see a bit more of a heel turn in there, moving from him making concessions to him maybe, going with some of the portrayals that he makes in the last third of the movie. I think that you could have done that logically, but there are certain scenes where people are in a room together and it doesn't really make sense where they are, and then, he makes a certain decision to betray someone, and it could have been fleshed out a little bit more why he did it. But yeah, the first 2/3 of this movie I'd say are like a 9 out of 10. Really great. And then the last third is like a 5. Tom Blythe is still spectacular. I think he maybe has his best scene in the entire movie near the end of this. But it really is a shame that they didn't stick the landing as well with this movie, because it kind of goes from being a great movie to, I think, forgettable for a lot of people. I still look at this very positively. I would probably say this is like an 8 out of 10 for this movie. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that they couldn't stick the landing. But those are my thoughts on A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Did you watch the movie? Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.